Welcome back to our channel. Hope you all are well, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the daily dose of aviation miracle. The morning sunlight spilled over the runway as Flight 402, an Airbus A320, prepared for departure. Passengers shuffled aboard, chatting quietly, unaware that fate was about to test every nerve on the plane. Families, business travelers, and students carried luggage and expectations, each of them blissfully unaware of the coming chaos. In the cockpit, Captain Reynolds, an experienced pilot with decades of flying under his belt, went through his checklist. Beside him sat Aviation, a 22-year-old trainee co-pilot, his hands slightly trembling over the controls. Today was his first long-haul flight as co-pilot, and though his training had prepared him for most scenarios, nothing could prepare him for what awaited. The engines roared to life, and Flight 402 lifted smoothly into the morning sky. The takeoff was routine, the ascent calm, and for a brief moment, Aviation felt the thrill of being in control, even under supervision. He adjusted dials, checked readings, and mirrored the captain's motions with precision. The ocean below glimmered faintly, stretching into the horizon like a sheet of glass. But the calm did not last. Within an hour, turbulence began to shake the aircraft, light at first, then sudden jolts that rattled the cabin. Passengers gripped armrests, and flight attendants steadied themselves as the plane rocked violently. The cockpit instruments beeped warnings, subtle at first, then urgent red alerts demanding immediate attention. Aviation's heart pounded. He monitored the instruments, adjusting throttle and rudder as instructed, trying not to show his fear. The captain remained composed, issuing calm directions, but even his voice hinted at the storm's severity. Outside, the sky darkened as black clouds rolled in, illuminated intermittently by jagged forks of lightning. Rain streaked across the windshield like molten glass. Then came the loud, unmistakable shriek of engine failure warning. The left engine flared, smoke trailing along the wing. Warning alarms blared throughout the cockpit. Fire detected. Captain Reynolds' hands moved swiftly over controls, attempting to stabilize the plane. But even a seasoned pilot could feel the weight of such a scenario. Aviation's instincts kicked in. He ran through emergency procedures, manually adjusting throttles and balancing the aircraft. As the turbulence tossed them unpredictably, every second counted. Each instrument reading became a lifeline. One wrong move, one hesitation, and hundreds of lives could be at risk. The storm outside intensified. Thunder boomed and lightning illuminated the raging clouds, revealing the vast ocean far below. The plane dipped slightly as a gust slammed into the fuselage. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks deployed automatically. Flight attendants navigated the aisles, trying to maintain calm while hiding their own fear. Aviation's knuckles whitened around the yoke. The captain's hand rested lightly on the side console, ready to intervene, but for the moment, he let the trainee take control under supervision. Aviation's training merged with instinct as he made micro-adjustments, throttle, rudder, pitch, each movement precise. Slowly, the aircraft regained partial stability. Minutes stretched like hours. Each moment was a test of focus, of composure, and of courage. Every passenger on board depended on the hands of this young trainee. The alarms continued to blare. Smoke trailed faintly from the engine, but through sheer determination, the aircraft held its course. Aviation's eyes flicked between the radar, engine indicators, and the horizon. He could just make out faint runway lights in the distance, a beacon of hope through sheets of rain and thunder. "We can make it," he whispered to himself, though his voice barely rose above the roar of the storm. The captain glanced at him, a brief nod of acknowledgement passing between mentor and trainee. They were a team, one experienced, the other untested, yet together they balanced the thin line between survival and disaster. The first stage of the crisis had passed, but the storm and the damaged engine meant the real challenge was yet to come. For now, Aviation had proven something crucial. Under extreme pressure, courage could emerge from the most unexpected places. And as the plane steadied itself, he realized that every second from here on would require his full attention, a test of skill, instinct, and calm that would define his career forever. The storm had grown stronger, swallowing the horizon in black clouds that glimmered with jagged lightning. Flight 402 shook violently as gusts of wind and sheets of rain pelted the fuselage. Below, the ocean roared, invisible through the thick curtain of clouds, each wave crashing in the minds of those aboard. Inside the cockpit, Ayan tightened his grip on the yoke. His knuckles were white, sweat dripping down his temples. The hum of instruments, the shrill alarms, and the roar of the engines blended into a chaotic symphony. Every reading mattered. Every flicker on the panel was a life-or-death signal. Captain Reynolds remained calm, issuing precise instructions. Stabilize thrust, balance rudder. His voice cut through the storm. But even his years of experience couldn't erase the fear lurking behind his eyes. Ayan followed orders, adjusting the controls with meticulous precision. The plane pitched violently, then leveled slightly, then trembled again as the storm seemed to mock them. The left engine's fire alarm persisted, a constant reminder that disaster was never far. Smoke trailed faintly along the wing, and sparks of electrical failure flickered across panels. Ayan's mind raced through emergency protocols, recalling every training session, every simulation he had endured. This was no simulation. This was life. Hundreds of lives depended on his actions. Altitude dropping, the captain said calmly but firmly. Ayan leaned closer to the instruments, noting the rapid descent rate. He made micro-adjustments, throttling the right engine, nudging the rudder, leveling the plane. The aircraft trembled violently, wings tilting in protest. For a moment, it felt as if the entire plane was being ripped apart by the storm. Lightning struck near the wings, illuminating the aircraft in a harsh white glow. The passengers screamed in fear, clutching their seats, oxygen masks dangling from above. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, securing bags and calming those around them. Every passenger's life now rested on the hands of the young trainee. Ayan's hands moved instinctively. Each adjustment was calculated, deliberate. He balanced throttle with rudder, monitored engine temperature, and corrected yaw, a dance of survival. Sweat blurred his vision, but his focus never wavered. He could hear the captain monitoring, ready to intervene if necessary. Yet he knew this moment was his to navigate. Then a sudden lurch. The aircraft jolted sideways, the fuselage groaning under pressure. The left engine sputtered violently before regaining partial power. Ayan's heart raced, but he didn't allow panic. His training merged with instinct. Every second counted. One wrong decision could send the plane spiraling into the ocean below. Outside, the storm reached a crescendo. Rain hammered the cockpit windows. Thunder rolled through the sky like a relentless drumbeat. Lightning struck the clouds nearby, casting brief, blinding shadows across the wings. The ocean was visible only in flashes, a vast, dark abyss threatening to claim them if they faltered. The captain spoke again, his voice calm but urgent. Diverting to nearest airport. 180 kilometers ahead. Maintain altitude as best as possible. Ayan nodded, eyes fixed on the instruments. He adjusted the autopilot manually, fine-tuning every input as the aircraft wobbled violently. The storm didn't relent, it intensified. Gusts slammed into the wings, and the fuselage shook like a leaf in a hurricane. Smoke from the left engine thickened, creeping toward the fuselage. Warning lights flashed frantically across the console. Ayan's mind raced through every contingency. Engine failure procedures, glide calculations, emergency landing protocols. He couldn't afford hesitation. The plane's balance, its trajectory, the lives of 180 souls, all depended on his hands. Minutes felt like hours. Outside, lightning continued to fracture the sky, revealing the ocean's churning waves. Ayan adjusted the yoke, careful not to overcorrect. The plane stabilized slightly, then trembled again. Sweat soaked his uniform, but his expression remained focused, unwavering. The passengers' panic grew. Oxygen masks dangled, some were screaming, some praying quietly. Flight attendants moved with practiced calm, a stark contrast to the terror in the cabin. Every small action in the cockpit had immediate consequences below. The young trainee realized that in this storm, even a single delayed adjustment could cost lives. Time and again, he corrected the aircraft's tilt, recalculated thrust balance, and manually stabilized the descent. The left engine threatened to fail completely at any moment. Sparks flying along the panel. Ayan's heart pounded in rhythm with the alarms. Still, he held composure, a remarkable combination of fear, focus, and determination. Then, a small beacon of hope. Through the storm, the faint glow of runway lights appeared in the distance. The nearest diversion airport was visible, a tiny strip of salvation through sheets of rain and flashes of lightning. Ayan's pulse quickened. The landing wasn't yet possible, but the first hurdle, reaching the airport intact, seemed achievable. Captain Reynolds gave a brief nod, a silent acknowledgement of the trainee's skill. Together they prepared for the approach. But even as hope appeared, the storm raged on, testing every ounce of courage and precision they possessed. Ayan realized this was more than a flight. It was a test of nerve, skill, and humanity. The aircraft trembled once more, but this time, the plane held. For a moment, silence fell over the cockpit, punctuated only by the alarms and the storm's roar. Ayan allowed himself a brief mental note. Survival was possible, but the real challenge was yet to come. Landing safely on that wet, rain-lashed runway, the trainee had proven something crucial, that even under the most extreme conditions, composure and focus could create a chance. Every second was a life-saving decision, and as Flight 402 soared through the storm, Ayan's resolve hardened. He would not fail. The storm still raged, the engine still burned, but hope flickered in the distance. Faint runway lights through sheets of rain, a promise that survival was within reach if courage held. The distant runway lights grew slightly brighter, faint beacons slicing through the sheets of rain. Flight 402 pitched and shuddered violently in the relentless storm. But Ayan's hands remained steady on the yoke. Every muscle in his body was taut with concentration. The plane was still unstable. The left engine sputtered faintly, a constant reminder that they were balancing on the edge of disaster. Captain Reynolds' voice broke the tension. "Prepare for approach. Maintain throttle, watch wind shear." His calm was a lifeline, a steady presence amid chaos. Ayan nodded, eyes flicking constantly between instruments, radar and the horizon. Every second now counted more than ever. One miscalculation, and the lives of 180 passengers could be lost in an instant. The aircraft dipped sharply as a gust slammed into the wings. Lightning illuminated the fuselage, revealing rain streaking furiously along the windows. The ocean below churned violently, though it was barely visible through the storm. Ayan adjusted the rudder, nudging the plane gently to counter the tilt. Each movement precise, deliberate. The plane trembled under pressure, but he held it steady. Passengers screamed softly in terror, oxygen masks dangling. Flight attendants navigated the aisles, keeping a calm facade while the plane lurched unpredictably. Outside, the storm's fury seemed endless, yet the runway lights remained a fragile promise on the horizon. "Flaps 30, gear down," the captain instructed, his hands steady over the controls. Ayan complied, manipulating the controls with deliberate care. The plane responded slowly, wings wobbling as the aerodynamic balance shifted. Thunder rattled the fuselage, lightning illuminating the cabin for brief, blinding moments. The left engine coughed again, sparks flickering faintly along the panel. Ayan's heart pounded, but his mind remained focused. Every adjustment mattered. Every second of hesitation could spell disaster. He recalculated glide, manually adjusted throttle balance, and corrected minor yaw deviations. His young hands were steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. The aircraft descended steadily, though turbulence lashed against it like a relentless storm beast. Rain pounded against the fuselage in deafening sheets. The landing strip, a narrow ribbon of hope through the storm, became more visible with each passing second. Ayan's pulse synchronized with the instruments. Each flicker of the altimeter was a reminder that there was no margin for error. Captain Reynolds glanced at him briefly, an approving nod passing between mentor and trainee. They were a team, each decision a collaboration. The runway was now fully visible through the rain, illuminated by emergency lights that cut through the storm's chaos. Ayan adjusted the throttles, fine-tuned the yoke, and guided the aircraft into alignment with the runway. Thunder rumbled. The plane jolted violently, but he remained composed. Sweat streamed down his face, eyes fixed, mind razor-sharp. He could feel the turbulence attempting to push the aircraft off course, but every adjustment kept the plane's nose steady. Below, the ocean roared, the world waiting for a misstep. That could end it all. The plane touched, down on the wet tarmac. Sparks flew as the landing gear skidded slightly on the slick runway, but the Airbus remained intact. Ayan held the controls firmly, braking gently while maintaining balance. Emergency vehicles flanked the runway, lights flashing as the aircraft slowed to a safe stop. The storm's rage was behind them, but the memory of each violent jolt remained, vivid in every cockpit panel and every mind aboard. Passengers erupted in relief. Some hugged strangers, tears streaming down faces, while others whispered prayers of gratitude. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, helping those who were overwhelmed, their calm professionalism, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. Captain Reynolds leaned back, a faint smile breaking through the exhaustion. He placed a hand on Ayan's shoulder. "Well done," he said quietly. The words were few, but the weight behind them spoke volumes. The young trainee had not only survived the storm, but had demonstrated courage, composure, and skill beyond his years. The engines hummed faintly, still hot and smoldering, but the crisis had passed. The runway lights reflected off the wet tarmac, a symbol of hope and survival. Every life on board, 180 passengers, had been preserved by the combined effort of experience and bravery, by a young trainee whose determination had risen to meet an impossible challenge. As the plane taxied toward the terminal, Ayan allowed himself a moment to breathe. The adrenaline slowly ebbed, leaving in its place a quiet sense of accomplishment and relief. Though he was just a trainee, today he had become a hero in the eyes of everyone aboard. Yet even as the plane came to a stop, the story was not complete. Authorities would investigate the incident. Black boxes would be analyzed, and Ayan's actions would be scrutinized in detail. But for now, in that moment, hope prevailed. A young trainee, untested in the real dangers of the sky, had saved hundreds of lives, and the world, at least those 180 souls, had a second chance thanks to his courage. The storm had passed, leaving behind a soaked runway and a plane that bore the scars of survival. Flight 402 stood at the terminal, its engines still warm, its wings glistening with rainwater. Passengers disembarked slowly, some still shaken, others whispering thanks to the flight attendants who had kept calm through the chaos. Yet, while the passengers moved on with their day, the real story was only beginning to unfold. Inside the cockpit, Ayan, the young trainee pilot, finally allowed himself to breathe. His hands, though still trembling slightly, released the yoke. Captain Reynolds placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You did everything right. Every decision, every correction, it was perfect." Ayan nodded, but the weight of the day's events still pressed on him. Though the plane had landed safely and hundreds of lives were intact, there was the inevitable scrutiny of the authorities ahead. Within hours, investigators arrived at the airport. Black boxes, radar data, and flight instruments were carefully collected. Ayan and Captain Reynolds provided detailed accounts of the flight's progression, every turbulence, every engine warning, every micro-adjustment made in the cockpit. The investigators were meticulous. They asked for precise timings, sequences of actions, and even the mental calculations behind critical decisions. Despite the official procedure, the narrative was clear. A young trainee, faced with extreme circumstances, had taken control at the precise moment when a veteran pilot faltered, stabilizing the aircraft through sheer skill and courage. Every emergency protocol executed by Ayan was logged, and data confirmed that his quick thinking had prevented a catastrophic disaster. The storm outside, the unstable engine, and the nearly impossible landing all pointed to one undeniable truth. A hero had emerged from unexpected quarters. News of the incident spread quickly. Aviation experts, news outlets, and social media commentators praised the exceptional bravery and composure displayed by the trainee. Headlines read, "Young trainee saves 180 lives during mid-air crisis. A new hero in the skies emerges." The public marveled at how someone so inexperienced could remain calm, precise, and effective under conditions that would challenge even the most seasoned pilots. Government aviation authorities conducted a formal review. The findings were unanimous. Without Ayan's rapid assessment, skillful handling of the controls, and unwavering composure, the flight could have ended in tragedy. Recommendations were made for immediate recognition, and steps were taken to honor his heroism. A formal ceremony was scheduled at the National Aviation Headquarters. Dignitaries, senior pilots, and government officials gathered to witness the recognition of an extraordinary act. Ayan, now in a pressed uniform, entered the hall with Captain Reynolds at his side. The crowd's applause was thunderous, not just for his skill, but for the hope he had delivered. A senior official stepped forward, presenting Ayan with a medal of bravery and a certificate of recognition for extraordinary courage, exemplary skill, and saving the lives of 180 passengers under extreme circumstances, the official declared. The applause was overwhelming. Ayan's hands shook slightly as he accepted the award, the weight of the honor sinking in. In an interview later that day, Ayan humbly credited his mentor. "I only did what Captain Reynolds taught me," he said. "But it was the people aboard, Flight 402, who motivated me. Their lives depended on me, and I had no choice but to focus." The captain smiled, proud, knowing that his trainee had surpassed every expectation. Beyond the awards and media attention, the real impact was on the passengers and crew. Many sent letters of thanks, others shared stories of the flight on social media. The narrative became more than just a news story. It became a symbol of hope and courage, a reminder that even in the direst situations, composure and humanity could prevail. Months later, Flight 402 returned to routine operations. But the story of Ayan's heroism remained vivid. He continued training, now more experienced and confident, with the knowledge that he had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious. Aviation authorities updated training programs to include scenarios based on his experience, ensuring that future pilots would learn from his example. For Ayan, the greatest reward was not the medal or the recognition. It was the realization that his actions had preserved life, hope, and faith in human courage. From a young trainee uncertain of his abilities, he had become a beacon of heroism. The memory of the storm, the trembling aircraft, and the hundreds of passengers' faces would remain with him forever, a reminder that courage can emerge in the most unexpected places. And so Flight 402 became more than a routine journey. It became a story of survival, mentorship, and the extraordinary potential within a young trainee. The passengers had lived to see another day. The aviation world had a new hero, and Ayan's journey had only begun. Through adversity came skill. Through fear came calm. Through chaos came hope. And in that hope, 180 lives were saved, forever changed by the courage of one young trainee pilot who refused to let the storm win.